Franz Kafka, Letters to Milena. So it's the lung. I've been turning it over in my mind all day long, unable to think of anything else. Not that it alarms me. Probably and hopefully, you seem to indicate as much. You have a mild case, and even full-fledged pulmonary disease. Half of Western Europe has more or less deficient lungs. As I have known in myself for 3 years, has brought me more good things than bad. In my case, it began about 3 years ago, with a violent hemorrhage in the middle of the night. I was excited, as one always is by something new. Naturally, somewhat frightened as well. I got up, instead of staying in bed, which is the prescribed treatment, as I later discovered. Went to the window, leaned out, went to the washstand, walked around the room, sat down on the bed. No end to the blood. But I wasn't at all unhappy, since by and by I realized for the first time in 3-4 practically sleepless years, there was a clear reason for me to sleep, providing the bleeding would stop. It did indeed stop, and has not returned since, and I slept through the rest of the night. To be sure, the next morning the maid showed up. At that time I had an apartment in the Schönborn Palais. A good, totally devoted, but extremely frank girl. She saw the blood, and said, "Pane doctor, you are not going to last very long." But I was feeling better than usual. I went to the office, and did not go to see the doctor until later that afternoon. The rest of the story is immaterial. I only wanted to say, it's not your illness which scares me, especially since I keep interrupting myself to search my memory, and underneath all your fragility, I perceive something like a farm girl's vigour, and I conclude, no, you're not sick. This is a warning, but no disease of the lung. Anyway, it's not that which scares me, but the thought of what must have preceded this disturbance. For the moment, I'm simply ignoring everything else in your letter, such as not a hella tea and apple daily from 2 to 8. These are things I cannot understand, which evidently require oral explanation. So I'll ignore all that, though only in this letter, as I cannot forget them. And just recall the explanation I applied to my own case back then, and which fits many cases. You see, my brain was no longer able to bear the pain and anxiety with which it had been burdened. It said, "I'm giving up. But if anyone else here cares about keeping the whole intact, then he should share the load, and things will run a little longer." Whereupon my lung volunteered. It probably didn't have much to lose anyway. These negotiations between brain and lung, which went on without my knowledge, may well have been quite terrifying. And what are you going to do now? The fact that you're being looked after is probably insignificant. Anyone who cares about you has to realize that you need a little looking after. Nothing else really matters. So is there salvation here as well? I said already, no. I'm not in the mood for making jokes. I'm not being funny in the least, and will not be funny again until you have written how you are planning a new and healthier way of life. After your last letter, I am not going to ask why you don't leave Vienna for a while. Now I understand. But after all, there are beautiful places close to Vienna as well, which offer many different cures and possibilities of care. Today, I'm not going to write about anything else. I don't have anything more important to bring up. I'm saving everything else for tomorrow, including my thanks for the issue of Kamen, which makes me moved and ashamed, happy and sad. No, there is one other thing. If you waste as much as 1 minute of your sleep on the translation, it will be as if you were cursing me. For if it ever comes to a trial, there will be no further investigations. They will simply establish the fact. He robbed her of her sleep. With that, I shall be condemned, and justly so. Thus I'm fighting for myself, when I ask you to stop. Franz.